there's billions of dollars in commerce per day that is occurring in the sub-dollar economy. I mean, look at the poorest 4 billion people on Earth live in places that are cash economies, and they're out there doing business. They do business in currency that is all over the place. So I mean, you land in a place like the Philippines or Thailand or Vietnam or half the African continent or half of the South American continent, and they all would benefit from using a frictionless digital cash system, not just for money, but money first, but then also all these other problems that they have with, you know, their digital identities, and like, hey, we don't have strong record keeping systems in our country, but I'm a doctor and I really like to be able to prove that under pressure, like things like this. And so Bitcoin fundamentally solves just a tremendous amount of economic problems. How can Bitcoin help assure only authentic votes are counted?
Well, let me take that one, Kurt. My actually exposure to the Bitcoin ecosystem, well, the conference in Dubai, the reason I went out there, of course, I wanted to learn about Bitcoin and feel everything, but I actually went out there to meet with Owen Vaughn from N-Chain and his legal team about this exact problem. Because I was working at that time with a congressman, and we were trying to find a way to make votes count, and this is actually in Arizona, and we were trying to find a way to make votes count. And how could I was like, let's look at this, because we actually met with a guy called Stephan February, which I had on a live stream not too long ago, and he was so super instrumental in explaining this exact problem and how it could work, and putting all the votes on blockchains. Kurt, could it be done?
Yeah, absolutely. The tech is there. It's how do you get wallets into the hands of every eligible voter? So, but the tech, I mean, yeah, if you just wanted to cast votes, that's super simple. So with ordinal technology, like essentially everybody's digital identity could be turned into an inscription. You sign with your private keys, you broadcast your vote. Your vote has a public attestation with a hash, and like, boom, you can automatically tally.
A million transactions a second on a UTXO-based blockchain like Bitcoin is possible. But we've been basically wrapping up the rest of the feature set that are needed for a full node, and fixing a lot of bugs and issues. And now we are actually listening on mainnet. So we have 3 nodes now that are. So we just fired up a third one today, and we've 3 nodes that are listening on mainnet, and that is the first step. So we're listening to, we're doing a block download, just to exercise the system to make sure everything's actually working properly. And one of the nodes is actually caught up and is listening to transactions live and validating blocks. A really interesting thing, though, that we have, we have very close connections to the people that run the seed nodes on the BSV network. And we opened 2 terminals next to each other just to see how the current SV node is comparing to the Teranode. And it was interesting to see that they were actually identical. So a new block comes in, it's validated, bam, it's added immediately. It's the same. So it was a lot of fun to see.
Why is everybody else wrong about blockchain, Siggi?
Why is everybody else wrong about blockchain? Because they're idiots. No, there's important. We are doing important work on the base layer, and there's some very smart people working on that. But that is only the base layer, and there are so many layers on top of that. And what we really need to do is people think about how to build applications. There's also, I want to shout out to the utilization stream, also the BSVA, that have been working also with you guys at Gorilla Pool, right? With putting in new libraries in there. Building overlay nodes, try to prepare the network for scale, because just Teranode is not enough. Teranode is going to be the heart of the network, doing all the timestamping and the transaction validation. But if we're really going to scale to millions of transactions a second, we need a lot more. And those guys are working on that every day, which is great with a lot of people, really good people. We just need the applications. We need people to start businesses and be brave. I think a lot of the things that we've done so far are great, but not big enough. Maybe we have to think much bigger what we do. This technology has so much potential, so huge potential to do things in finance and in every area to make the world a little bit more a better place, more fair, more honest. Don't be afraid to reach out to the people at the BSVA or any of us, because we're just people, and we're also insecure, and we're also, afraid of things. But everybody, is rooting for everybody in this ecosystem, and especially us at the BSVA, we're there to help people.
How do you retrain, a dog that's been abused for years on the way the system currently works?
I think actually money is a big part of it, right? So if you have the currency flowing through it, and you're able to you have an incentive to provide valuable content to others, all of a sudden, you might not post that snarky post, because why don't you post something that might earn you a few sats? Which is actually kind of almost the opposite of the incentive in the current system because of the advertising model. But if you actually, again, use money to reward, which is the use of money, it's to record value. We're soon going to roll out something called up value, which is basically a reward for the creator of some message. So you'll be able to reward that creator for their content using whatever amount you want. You can do it as small or as big as you want, essentially. And that's a really actually important part of the Bitcoin kind of advantage. The Bitcoin SV advantage is that because the fees are so cheap and the transactions you can send is so small, the amount of people that can be rewarding on this platform is like, you're not really limited by the amount of Bitcoin you have. Like if you want, you can send like 10 sats or 20 sats. So what matters isn't even the amount. What matters is the relative ranking of the content. This idea of being first to content.
What's the gold standard for trading UI? This is a good question, actually. I recall in 2017 when Binance was in the US and we just loved it. In my experience, actually, the best trading experience I ever had was probably Bitfinex, like circa 2016 to 2019 era. Bitfinex was like 10 times better than anybody else. At the time, that was the best. Bitfinex was killer. But what, in your experience, what is the best trading app?
I think it's quantifiable, really. What's the good UI versus bad UI? Quantifiable by simply calculating how many clicks you need to do to set a stop loss, how much time you need to go through your trades. And because I'm a trader myself, and we developed DXS UI UX keeping this in mind, and we are far ahead in terms of number of clicks to set a stop loss, for example. Trading is a skill that can bring you financial freedom, consistent financial freedom. And, before I got into trading, I had the impression that trading is just about luck. Yeah. You just bet on one side, you win, you lose, but really it's a skill. And by following some of the more successful traders on DXS, I can see that you can be genuinely, consistently profitable throughout the years, and that's what DXS is about. Yeah, it's not about just holding and hoping, praying you get lucky. It's about developing a skill to be better than others. It's a game of emotion. It's like about mastering your emotional skill set and becoming financially freedom, by improving yourself.
There is something that we call, it's a new product. It's more like a service. It's called Wallet as a Service. So it's the same infrastructure we have for Hankas as a wallet. It's exactly the same thing, but now it's available for any other developer. So you can go ahead and create blue Hankas if you want, or you can just create an app and integrate wallets, whatever works for you. But it's something we realize is the infrastructure that we have and the knowledge that we have about how to create wallets, it's a very valuable asset, and many other companies and developers out there can benefit from this. Stable coins, they are a massive priority for us. It removes so much complexity from the user experience. This is what we are all about. It protects businesses from price fluctuations, and it's because it's the language that people talk. If I introduce there's this other token called BSB that is part of the story, then I had to start, when you're trying to tell someone something and there's something they don't know, this is great money, it's frictionless, and you can pay and there's no fees. It's not dollars. So we want to just solve it. And this is why stablecoin.
One of the important things about Bitcoin that I've kind of come to realize is that it really requires self-responsibility. The notion of self-custody, that's like something that a lot of folks tout. It's also something that prevents a lot of mass adoption because a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. They don't want to. It does, it implies a lot of self-responsibility, and I think that kind of ties back to this notion of authority. And we, as a people, as a system, have delegated a lot of our personal responsibilities off to organizations and municipalities, agencies that are supposed to take care of certain things. And over time, I think it's become more and more evident that some of those relationships are untrustworthy. That we're not getting what we say. We're not getting what we were promised. Honesty and the accountability, while it's notionally there, it's effectively not. What can we do at a grassroots level? I think this, it comes back to small groups self-organizing. So what can we do at a local level? That starts with the self, and then it goes to the family, and then at least geography wise, that goes to our street and our neighborhood, and then then we work back up. And there's a lot of innovation that needs to happen at that local level.
Question: what's an honest timeline where you see Bitcoin used as cash for, let's say, a cup of coffee? Will we see it in our lifetime? Let's bust out the crystal ball. Ryan, what do you think?
Oh, wow. I hope so. Actually, I've already done this in the past, but yeah, I mean, it's going to vary in different places. But I think go down to your local coffee shop. I mean, if everybody here went to their local coffee shop and started evangelizing, like, we need more Johnny Appleseeds. I was there's been folks in the past who've just been great at evangelizing. Like, just do it. Like, get people to have an experience with Bitcoin. Like, that was the thing that was like an aha moment for me. The first time I swiped money button, that was aha, got it. That's how I expect this to work. That's what delivered on the experience. And so, whatever you can do to create these experiences for your family, for people in your community, like, that stuff will add up, and I think it will add up very quickly. So I sure hope I see it in my lifetime, and I hope I see it in the next few years at a much larger scale.
Yeah. That's a good point. Like, if you make a deal with your local coffee shop, you could be the one to use Bitcoin at your coffee shop.
So I ignored it for a while. And it wasn't really until maybe around 2011 or 12. I can't remember exactly when, but Bitcoin must have been about $10 at the time. But a French guy in a hackerspace here in Singapore, I went out and I bought both of us this milk tea that they serve in Southeast Asia. Comes in these little transparent plastic bags with a straw in it, and he reimbursed me for the $1.20 in Bitcoin. That was back when Bitcoin was still peer-to-peer electronic cash, and that is literally how I got my first Bitcoin. It was about 0.1 Bitcoin at the time, which is how I know that it must have been around $10 or so when I got my first Bitcoin. And it was sort of always in the periphery. I never really paid attention to it beyond that. I did briefly look into it. Being a software developer, I'm always interested in technology. And at the time, I was interested primarily in, okay, what can I build with Bitcoin? And I soon realized that the programmable parts of Bitcoin had sort of been locked away, stored in a cupboard under the staircase, and this was don't go here. You're not allowed to go and fiddle with programmables. And so I also thought
the unmentionables box. Yeah.
Yes. So this notion of the standard transaction, and you can only do these few scripts, and you can't really do arbitrary locking and unlocking that existed for the longest time in Bitcoin, sort of put me off of it for a long time. And it wasn't really until 2017, when the price was running up, that everybody, myself included, started searching in the sofa cushions for those Bitcoin keys that we had at some point in the past. And that is when I sort of started getting back into it. Then the Bitcoin Cash split happened. There is this problem that is sort of a juicy problem that has existed for a long time, that has seemed intractable for a really long time. Let me see if I can tackle it and actually figure out whether or not a technical solution exists that I would be happy with. So if you think about what the big block future looks like with Teranode and SPV, wherein you end up with devices wherein the default mode of operation for our mobile wallets is an ability to communicate peer-to-peer with each other. I can connect directly to you, you can connect directly to me without any intermediaries. And the reason why that is interesting is because it opens up a class of solutions wherein I can run on a mobile device that I have a light client node that actually hooks into the Bitcoin network, a peer-to-peer library stack that allows you and I, once we connect to the internet, to discover each other peer-to-peer and facilitate these interactions. And it also means that you end up as a developer being able to deliver certain types of applications that literally requires no server-side infrastructure. Because you go back, you back off from platforms, you back away from software as a service, and you go back to the original 25-year-old notion of peer-to-peer interactions, where it is literally just UI and the direct value exchange, right? So that one end of the spectrum until now hasn't really been covered. And I've sort of taken care of that now, I should think.
You know, what is the emergency that BTC bails you out?
Yeah, when there's an emergency, do you sell BTC into a collapsing market? You know, how does that work? How does that bolster anything? Because the fact is that you can't create anything on top of the BTC ledger. There's no means by which, you know, and I've looked at this. You know, I've recently been approached by companies here in Australia who are who openly acknowledge, and these are companies who've been in the space longer than me, and they're openly acknowledging now, yeah, BTC is broken. There's no way that we can do anything on top of this. And they're trying to essentially lock BTC into smart contracts, and then do all of the activity on a completely different ledger. And I kind of like, you know, I started looking at it and I went, you know what, you're having to do the stupidest thing possible to get around the stupidest problems that have been created. And, you know, as much as I could help, I really don't want to, because I know that any money that gets put into this and any work that gets done on this is really for naught, because, you know, this whole thing is just an edifice built on sand of the crumbliest, most non-foundational type. And now, if you have IoT devices who are now attached to a blockchain, what you are able to do is actually you're able to send a command to those IoT devices by making a transaction on the ledger. And so instead of that device connecting back to a server where you have this kind of link where you can insert a man in the middle, that device is just looking at the whole blockchain and waiting for a token to move and to pass an instruction through that token. and it might be as simple as turning on a street lamp. But now, instead of the command to turn that street lamp on coming from that central server, where somebody can insert themselves and appear to be that central server and say, hey, turn on the light, you now have a private key that you need to spend that token to turn the lights on. You can make that very secure. And now every IoT device, it doesn't talk to the central server. It just gets told, here's your token. And it watches the token on the blockchain. It allows us to do things in a very measurably better way and more secure and less susceptible to disruption.
I think the issue for a lot of people is that they think of IoT as a novelty in their home. Like, why does my toaster need to talk to my refrigerator? And that's most people's experiences with IoT is like, their Alexa device or, something like that in their home. But like you said, in industrial IoT systems, checkpoints on infrastructure, like those kinds of things are super mission critical, and done well, they can be almost perfectly secure using blockchain tokens as security checkpoints. But
all of the conveniences of society run on Internet of Things.
Yeah. Would love to know if Lin believes there's any use for BTC beyond speculation. I think obviously, he's trying to build new financial system on top of BTC, basically. So
new casino ma.
Yeah. There you go. Right. We need to gamble in the network.
In the network. On chain, trustlessly, right?
Yeah.
And across borders. That is, I think, that is the very first maybe.
There you go.
That is the very first utility. On BTC on Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
There is a poker room.
For sure. Well, yeah. I mean, it was Satoshi. The first thing he had in there, he had the framework.
Yeah, that is the true Satoshi vision. You know.
Yeah. No, it's true. The only way BSV wins, create more fees than any other blockchain. It's true. We need more value. We need more business. What I've been saying since day one, since before there was BSV, even since before there was a Bitcoin Cash, I've been saying we win if we get customers. You need to get people to use Bitcoin to generate business on that blockchain. It's business is the necessary ingredient for creating long-term sustainability. It's just like anything else. Like I said in the middle of the conversation with Lin, if we create a business relationship between the US and China, well, it just makes us want the other one to do better. And so if we make each other do better, well, then we're invested in each other's success. And it's the same thing. If you create a business on BSV that other people start to rely on, then you have more people who say, maybe I should be mining BSV. Maybe I should be adding to the infrastructure. Maybe I should be so you start to create this recursive economy. This is why we have nationalism in a national economy, for example, is well, if we buy American goods, that gets American jobs. And if American jobs are better, then Americans have more money. And if Americans have more money, they'll buy other American goods. And it's you just create this growing thing. And it's the way any economy works. You have to create churn and profit, and it's a good thing.
The Bitcoin, what made me so interested in it is that it allowed you to circumvent the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers now own and control Bitcoin. Remember, we were supposed to say, you can avoid the banks. Who is the largest purchaser of Bitcoin right now? The top three.
Probably BlackRock, MicroStrategy, and Vanguard, or whoever. Some other fund whose name you may or may not know, but it's bankers.
But the technology is growing a whole lot faster than Bitcoin price. As to valuing things like Bitcoin, the price on CoinDesk or on Coinbase looks impressive. But if you go back to the last big paradigm shift, the second to the last one, you had cell phones and you had the internet. Which would you rather, to be able to buy an IP packet and hoard it, or to own the technology behind the internet itself? Eyes on the prize. That's what I tell everybody. Yeah. What is the probability of all of these things happening to me by chance without a common thread? And I listed it. I uploaded thousands and thousands of pages of legal documents and studies and research. And it said roughly 1 in 50 billion.
Earth.
Then I came on and said, well, be as conservative as possible without leaving the realms of reality. And then it said, at best, we can chop that in half and make it 1 in 25 million. What you're going to see is the battle of the gatekeepers who don't want to be rendered irrelevant. And traditionally, they don't do that through innovation. They do it through lobbying and force. I think that the true power of distributed communities, I would say the internet, but the internet is not what it used to be. When I first got into the internet in 1991, 92, dial-up modems, 14.4 baud, etc. You were able to go on the internet and publish freely. You had a web page, you had true autonomy. That lasted for about 15 years, maybe 20 years. And then all activity started to focus and congeal into apps. And once they've congealed into apps, you're now back under the control of a gatekeeper.
So storytelling basically doesn't mean anything anymore to the consumer. So we're trying to convince companies to do story proving. How can you do that? If you look at this new EU legislation, we see a lot of companies that really struggle because you have like tens of new directives that they need to comply with. They don't even know what it's all about. Where is the data? Do we even have it? And so especially mid-market is like struggling to keep the costs down and still comply with new. And for example, one case of that is digital product passports. Mm-hmm. So starting from 26, products in textile and fashion need to have a digital product passport, which essentially means that you have a QR code in your shirt that you can scan with your phone, and then you need to be able to see what was the material composition, where was it produced, how was it transported, and things like that. Now, how do you even start with a thing like that? Most companies are not like there with having their supply chain mapped out in data and having access to all of that information. In the real world, they just order something in Asia and some guy in a factory produces it and sends it over. They don't, well, they might have infrastructure, they might not. They might just write something on a notepad. There's a lot of questions there. And so how do you, in a complex supply chain such as that, collect that data and prove that it was the right data for the right point? And that's where blockchain is very useful, because other stakeholders in that supply chain can collect that data and store it immutably, traceably. Then you can prove at this point in time, this person acting on behalf of this company said this about that point of data. And so that's for example, we have a case with a company called Docflow. The Docflow platform, they have a view on what maritime shipments are doing. They have APIs integrated, they have satellite images, they know where ships are at a certain point in time. And so they know, well, this vessel with this fuel went from GPS point A to GPS point B. What they do is they notarize that on the blockchain. And then another partner can pick up that data. They just get an event into their own system and says, well, we have a ship here. This was the vessel. This was the fuel. Doing a calculation on how much emissions that's all certified according to standards. But we added to a traceable provenance trail. And so you have this shipping data. You have these calculations that at that point in time resulted in these emissions. And then that in its turn is connected to compensation efforts that happen, for example, tree planting, to compensate for the emissions you have caused. And so that's put in that same traceability layer as well. And so you can verify that this ship for this distance had these calculations and these exact trees were planted for it.
It's cool.
And that's cool because there's a lot of fraud going on there with greenwashing. Trees get sold double.
Yeah.
And so you can't do that with a system like this, and it helps you to automatically collect that data.
It worries me that we could see a sovereign play, that President Trump says, I don't want I don't want from US miners that those coins go outside the US. We want them all sovereignly locked and protected. And we want actually our US fund managers to have those coins, or all kinds of things could happen.
I think there's more than an outside chance that ends up being the case. I think Donald Trump is signaling that pretty strongly. So it's and I, again, have mixed feelings about it, because I agree, the asset class as a store of value, it's not an uninteresting concept, and I also don't think it's going away, not anytime soon. But it's everybody enjoying the party for too long. I think, like, we've been on this party now for a very long time and ignoring a lot of the opportunity. But I think the real opportunity, and we might get lucky that people start to see with sort of the growth in like general ordinals technology and wanting to see Bitcoin BTC able to do some of the stuff that we've been working on in BSV for the last 5 or 6 years. And all of a sudden there's this sort of new swell of education and say, why did we turn off OpCat, for example?
I never saw blockchain as a payload network. It's not designed to be a payload network. Why am I trying to put big data on a blockchain? What I want is my event record. What I want is the provenance of how something happened. I want it inscribed in a Merkle tree. I want it to be in a hash record. I want to look up the TXID and I can correlate it with cryptography to the event payload that's sitting in a database that was designed for that. But I think it's illogical really to think about putting very large payload traffic on blockchain networks. That's the wrong thinking. So if we set the foundations of what is this technology good for, what should it be pointed at, then consensus forming, books and records, event records, the real provenance, building identities and trust systems, then we start to think about how the evolution of particular protocols along with other networking standards can evolve. It's also brought in things like we've IPVPN tunnels. So you can have a VPN tunnel that is natively created in an IPv6 protocol. If you start to think about that particularly for the device-to-device market and say, well, what about incorporating something like the Bitcoin protocol, the opcodes, getting that integrated into the IPv6 stack? All of a sudden you can have endpoints that are micropayment endpoints. They're identity endpoints. The IP address, the Bitcoin address. It uses the micromoney system to pay for a road toll or a automatic payment of an EV car charging on a payment station. There's some really nice applications that unlock in that world.
So if I gave you the magic wand, what does the world look like when you're in charge?
I want the people to know more about BSB, because most people don't know about BSB, but BSB is very far more than it is assumed by people, because BSB can scale many businesses, and many government agencies can really use BSB, and it is way more safer, more reliable, and scalable than most Web2 applications. So I want people to truly understand what's Bitcoin and what is BTC, because the original protocol determines the Bitcoin, not the crypto price. So I want people to actually understand what is Bitcoin. So that's why in this script, we sometimes organize meetup, more especially here in Nigeria. I have organized many meetups to teach many students on what is Bitcoin and how they should use Bitcoin and develop some applications on Bitcoin.
Now I think that's really important. I've been hosting meetups in the Bitcoin space for 7-8 years now.
We dropped this JPEG and a few months later the war started, and we were like, what have we done? Like, things just it really seems like the cards are comically stacked against whatever we try to do, but at the same time I can't help but smile just as you.
For sure. So let's talk a little bit about the game. I think you've probably been in development for 2 years. It is and a tremendous amount of work to build a game.
We've been a small team. We've really learned a lot of things as we went. The goal itself was way too ambitious for what the project initially was. Yeah. We thought building a metaverse was easy, or even a Web3 app. Yeah. And, you know, also the environment itself didn't help us, because just as we were making a lot of progress in one side, like things changed on a fundamental level everywhere else. So all in all, we're, I guess, proud to say that we now have not finite, but very commercial, easy to play, accessible version of the game that everyone should enjoy playing once in a while when you organize a test. It will be a bit of a journey to get that initial base back, but I'm pretty sure that out of every like lingering ecosystem player, we have as good a chance as any to like bring back some base and have some fun on the end of the game. Because even in our internal testing, it is a bit addicting, you know, to just make money with shooting people that interact with on a meta level like that. Oh, do you want some alpha? I have something. I have something in my mind huge, but I thought Gups was gonna be huge. So this one though, it might do it. I can't get too much into it literally, but it looks and feels like many different parts of the BSV apps people have used and known by now, just like combined in a slightly different way. When it comes to UI and UX, and it will be a general purpose app for tokenization. I know everyone tried their version of that already. I'm just gonna do my own because I'm like goofy meme, you know. I really think our approach is unique, and we're gonna make the world a better place. Unironically, but it's a long cook for me personally. And I'm taking my time with it. It's something that I've theorized, that I've have a look at them. I'm just even gonna show you for a second. Wait, maybe hold on.
Oh man, I'm pumped.
And now it's time for the meme of the week.
Happy New Year, buddy. What? I am manifesting 10,000 beams of light upon my consciousness.
Okay.
There are 10 million opportunities within my soul. I need only choose one.
I'm going to the gym today.
My body is alive within 10,000 gyms. I am Alexander reincarnated.
So how are the goals going?
My mental health is on a razor's edge. All the vices of yesteryear linger within me, and I am seconds from falling into an abyss of despair.
Do you want a cookie?
Do you want me to forfeit all that I have worked for in the past 24 hours? For what? For a cookie?
It's Snickerdoodle.
Ah, what the hell?
Are you drunk?
Are you drunk?
Are you giving up that easily?
I figure, what's the point? I can't write 10,000 best-selling novels. I can't look like Idris Elba.
Well, no, for many reasons you can't.
You did this.
What?
It was the cookie. I was doing so good until you gave me the cookie.
Feeling better?
I have compressed all desire into a thimble. I am a being of nothingness. I am nothing.
So basically the same.
Yeah.
Wow, can't believe we're back to work tomorrow, huh?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking resolutions are kind of dumb.
Exactly.
You can't just change your personality at the start of some arbitrary date. I mean, it's stupid.
Thank you.
That's what birthdays are for.
Oh, God.
See you in 8 months when I will read Infinite Jest for sure this time.
We're fighting uphill against very smart, vicious people. You know, and some number of them, I think, are also evil. Like, we're competing in a market against people who want to win, and they're used to winning, and that can be our strength.
I also don't think they're all malicious. I think
they're not.
I think most of them are just, you know, not educated on this, and they're going with the majority, but there are a few, I would say they are evil, and there are a few of those, and they've been, you know, but I think the vast majority, and we got to be careful not to just label everyone evil. I think the vast majority are just following the pack. But we think they have the agenda, but no, they're just sheep in that cult.
Yep.
All you need is just one killer app.
Yep.
And then the floodgates open. So again, that's kind of people worried about price and all this sort of stuff. It is just one thing that we need. I remember Craig being adamant that was, you know, all you need just one thing to get the throughput up. Just get the throughput up, and then just bang, it'll all just start happening.
But the Champions TCG people, they created a card game, and it does not create a ton of transaction volume on BSV. It's not, and from that standpoint, it's not like, wow, thank God they're there. As a miner, I'm like grateful for their business, but it's making me pennies a day. But for their company, what their business has done is they are making money, and just using the ledger to tokenize their assets. And so they created a business model using the blockchain for exactly what it should be used for. They're not creating unnecessary spam. Like, I don't know how much money they're making as a company, but I know they're growing as a company because they have some absurd number of stores. Walk into the mall and say, wow, there is a BSV powered card game in a foil package. You get physical cards and you get digital twins and all this other stuff. Like, they're running a real business on BSV.
This land was tainted by the weight of forgotten wars. He had failed them, but the path of redemption was open before him.
The blossom blade shall fall or rise anew.